Hello and welcome again to another episode of One Starfish, where our mission is to change the world one starfish or one person at a time. As always, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, share, all the good stuff. I'm really excited to have a really good friend of mine, Sue, on today. She is a very productive lady, and we're going to get into a lot of that stuff. So it's been hard to track her down. We made it happen. I'm so excited for that. Her and her husband, they run RMD Advertising, which is in the food industry for the last 30 plus years. But really her passion is raising her three daughters to be wonderful humans in the world. And she said before we started, there's an interesting story about that. So we'll get into that, I'm sure, here too. But thanks so much for being on, Sue. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so excited. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you, buddy.
Oh man, I love it. Pleasure's all mine. So tell us a little bit about raising, where did that become the passion? Tell us a little bit about how that went, or is going, I guess you could say, and where it continues to go, and how you have also put family, because I gather that family first while you've been building a very successful business.
Yeah, so much there for so many women especially, but I think so many men too. You know, our dads don't get enough credit really about how much extra lifting they have to do to help families. And when a couple, and so many couples do jointly own businesses together right now, our family owns a business and a charity. And so it's just a lot. But anyways, so yeah, I never wanted children and I always wanted to own a business. And so we started our business, and then 7 years after being married, lo and behold, I was pregnant. And so we had our first baby, and I wanted a second baby right away. And then, I was just hooked. And so then I wanted a third baby. And then I had a unfortunate health situation where I was forced to have a hysterectomy. And that was devastating because I knew there was another baby out there for me. So long story short, we adopted Anderson, my third baby, from Russia. She was 13 months when we brought her home, and severely malnourished. So big, beefy, strong. They'll always be little girls, I guess, but she's not a little girl anymore. But big, beefy, strong human being right now. But always we wanted to it was always our purpose to put three really wonderful human beings on this earth. And I saw that as a real purpose, just to be very intentional about what we did. Family first. It's hard when you own a business. We always told our children, because there are times that your clients need you and you can't say family first. And so you're constantly juggling. So we always taught our children, mommy needs to go help somebody right now. And so in doing so, they grew up understanding that work is important. And I've always told my children there are really only two things you have to give away in this world: your love and your work, so give them well. And so they kind of grew up with that. But, in the interest, it sounds very grandiose to put three really wonderful human beings in the world. But that road has been anything but smooth for us, for sure. And so just lot of bumps, to say the least, along the way that my husband and I have literally had to pick each other up from the ground and said, come on, let's get going. So.
Wow, that's good. So you said that there's this really interesting story. It's hard to put the three humans on the earth and help them be, I guess, healthy and well. So tell us a little bit about this story. I'm intrigued.
So many stories, but one that I was reminded of today, it's so funny because you just forget about these things, even though they're kind of profound. But Anderson, my youngest, has survived not one, not two, but three hurricanes. And I'm not just talking it's in the vicinity of she was in the eye of the storm 3 times. And then usually without power for 2 or 3 weeks thereafter. It's very hard to get to a hurricane victim if you've ever known one thereafter. So in her third hurricane, I didn't know it was a hurricane. And I have a team member that works for me that used to be a meteorologist. And she came into my office one day and said, Sue, there's a hurricane headed right to Anderson. And I said, really? And she said, yeah. And she showed me the map. And I'm like, whoa, how dangerous is that? And she goes, it's pretty dangerous. It's a pretty big hurricane. So I said, all right, I'm going to give her a call. So I got on the phone with her and she's like, oh, it looks like it's going to miss us. And I'm like, my friend says no. And so we were talking hour by hour as this hurricane was like really heading fast towards her. And then my friend, Sarah, was coming in and giving me different tips that only a meteorologist might know. Like, you need to do this, you need to tell her to do this. But the one thing that really stuck in my mind was most people die from hurricanes, not just from the storm, but from the debris because they leave their place of shelter. So tell her to not leave her place of shelter. And so I said, all right. So I told her, amongst other things, I'm like, you guys can't leave no matter what. She was living with a family at the time. And so anyways, so the storm came. And if you can imagine talking to your daughter on a cell phone hour by hour, and you could hear the storm outside and it was getting louder and louder. And I'm like, all right, check back now every half hour. And she was calling me. And well, then one of the phone calls came and it was horrendous, Angela, because there was you could hear the storm. It was so unbelievably loud, just like it was like in her house. And you could hear the screaming around from the family that she was living around. Everybody was like, at that point, it hit hysteria. And I said, put the dad on the phone for me. And you never know. I relate it to my entrepreneurial training because entrepreneurs have a lot of storms that hit them every day. But I'm a pretty steady individual now. And so I'm like, put the dad on the phone. And so he came, good Southern man, but he was hysterical. And I said, listen to me. I'm going to tell you 3 things that are going to help you to get out of this. And if you do not listen to my 3 things, you will not survive. Do you understand me? And he's like, yes, ma'am. And so said, number 1, calm yourself down. You cannot think logically in that state because in that moment, I could hear him screaming in the background. It's just down the street and across the road. We're going to make a run for it. We're going to stay together and we're going to make it to the fire station. Well, I'm coming back, my friend saying they can't leave their shelter. So I'm like, calm yourself down. You cannot make decisions in that state. And then he's like, all right, but we got to go to the fire station. I'm like, no, you need to stay where you are. And then I said, number 2, pick a room, any room. I don't care what room, but get your family and my daughter in a circle and hold hands. And he's like, okay, ma'am. And then I said, and he goes, what's the 3rd thing? And I'm like, and then you calm yourself and you pray. And Angela, right then, the phone went out and I lost connection with them. And so I could only watch it on the computer screen. And but when they finally got back in touch with me after 2 or 3 hours and the storm had passed, I was talking to him right in the eye of the storm. And it was right over them. And everybody survived. And every room in that house was demolished. I saw the video after, except for the room they were sitting in. Isn't that a cool story?
Crazy. Holy.
Yeah.
Cry. Like,
No, I know, right? It's just profound. And it's funny how you can forget a story like that until somebody brings it up to you and you're like, oh, yeah. But I guess there's a couple of lessons. I just told my team this story. There's a couple of lessons there that I think are really important to take away in life. One is teach yourself to be calm. That calm inner voice is, you got this. You got this. You're going to be okay. And if you haven't yet developed that, you really need a friend that you can rely on that will say that to you and get you through those storms, those metaphorical storms. And then secondly, people just need to hang together, especially right now where there's so much division and separation. We're stronger together. That family coming together in a circle, holding hands, like that's powerful. And I also think that those are lessons that dad got to teach those little boys, his children, that will stick with them forever. And then thirdly, just for me, I'm a very faith-based person. So just the power of prayer for me is really important. And just like the beautiful miracles that came out of that day for that entire family, the entire house was demolished except that room where they were at. Like, And so I just think that when our storms hit us personally or in business, and I've had a lot of them over the years, both in both arenas, just really need to take those life lessons with you, pick them up, and move forward.
Wow, that's so crazy. That's awesome. I love that. That's an amazing story. And obviously your dog, I mean, everyone's here for a purpose, but I hope Anderson realizes that she's definitely here for a purpose. I mean, not only did you adopt her and rescue her from a tough situation right at the beginning of her life, but there's something trying to take her out. And, that always means to me that there's like something big for her to step into, and show it to her to step into it.
I tell that all the time.
Yeah, wow. And also, so Sue also has a charity, Wagons Ho Ho, and they deliver about 2,000 wagons of food to underprivileged families. Everything's nonprofit. They have like 700 volunteers, and that's been around, you said, for about 15 years. What got you into that? Like, where did that venture come from?
Yeah, that's a cool story too. So 30 years in the agency business, about 15 years ago, we're like, profits are good. I really have never been a money motivated person. I've always been motivated by the good that money can do. So, at Christmas, typical businesses give wine or candy or gifts to their clients. And I'm like, this just it seems empty. And so I'm like, what if we give a gift to someone else in the name of our clients? And so that's how it started. And we started with like 20 wagons, and we were like, I don't know what possessed us to think that way. So nobody really remembers, but we bought 20 wagons and we built them. And then we delivered them to families that we heard of that needed help. And just in your own community, guys, there's so many people that need help, so many families. And so then it's like, if we did 20, could we do 40? And if we did 40, could we do 80? And so every year just kind of built until we got to 200 wagons, and we could no longer build them in our office with our team. It was just too taxing. And so we moved it to a food bank who said, we have space. And so then, and they're like, and we can tap into some of our volunteers. I'm sure they'd love to help you. Well, that was really the beginning of Wagons Ho 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 exploding. And if you want to learn about it, you can go to wagonshohoho.org. But this year we'll build 2,000 wagons again. But not only that, somewhere along the way, we decided that really those wagons for those children needed to have food in them for a Christmas dinner to help the entire family. And our mission really is that we believe firmly that every child deserves a Christmas, and not just because of the fun toys they get or Santa Claus. We really believe that Christmas is about hope. And so many children really need that right now. They always have, but really right now. And so we deliver hope on wheels, and we put a Christmas dinner inside of it. And we have charity partners that come and pick up the wagons and deliver them. We have all of the food for 2,000 dinners is donated. We don't buy a thing. The only thing we buy are the wagons, and we do that through private donations. And 700 volunteers on one day in 3 shifts will come to build those wagons. And there's some beautiful videos and photos on that website you should go and see. And for me, that's been the unexpected gift. We started out thinking, let's help clients, then let's help children, then let's help families. But when you talk to those 700 volunteers, some of them are serial volunteers. They're like, this is my 10th year. This is my 8th year. And they come back every single year because so many will tell you, this is my Christmas. And so just the ability to impact 700 people and turn them on to the gift of giving and volunteerism was the unexpected gift for me. It's so cool. But really, our future goal is to continue to expand Wagons Ho 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 to other communities. And so we're trying really, really hard to set it up in a way right now so that we can almost franchise it in a way so that we could just hit more children with more legs.
So cool. And all this stuff links will all be in the show notes. So one can definitely click on it and check all this stuff out. So tell me a little bit about, like, one of the things you've talked about a little bit is, how, I hate the word busy, but anyway, how running the business, running all that stuff, but you learned to be quiet in the storms as something you talked about here a few times. where did that kind of come from, and how do you suggest someone starts? Because I do think that's a big one, especially if you've got an entrepreneur or family, like you said, just hustling and all this stuff in our busy world. How do you learn to be quiet in the busyness?
Yeah, there's a couple of tips that I've learned over time. Number one, I won't give up my morning routine. It's very popular right now. I've had my morning routine for a long, long time. I get up at 5. I'll spend about an hour and a half in meditation and prayer, just being real quiet. And I've started to write down the things that I know that I'm supposed to do, and I've actually started to do them. And that took me way too long. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. But also, I try to take a break real quick. At 3 o'clock is my time. So, no matter what I'm doing, I try real hard around 3 o'clock to just take a minute, close the door, and kind of breathe. And the third thing I do is I run like a fiend. I'm a terrible runner. I've always been a terrible runner, but I do. I do it mostly for my head, not my heart.
It's kind of a beast, guys.
But I'm, again, a really bad runner, but I do it. And each year, my husband and I run for charities, for 5Ks for charity. So this year, we'll run 22 5Ks for charity. And so there's lots of 5Ks where people, anywhere between $20 and $45 to sign up. And, that adds up over time, especially if you inspire others to do it. So we started with 2016 doing 16 races, 17, 18, 19, we're up to 22. We'll continue it until my legs give out, which hopefully they never will. We'll see. But running and daily, I don't spend a day not moving. And I can't remember really the last time I watched television during the week, because something has to give when you're busy, and I gave up television. So that, all of those tips really have worked for me. But honestly, the reason I'm here is because you wanted me on your show a couple months ago, and I was going through a lot. It was like extra busy time. And I had to bail on you, and I felt really bad about that. And I believe in the power of priorities. And when you're still enough and you're quiet enough, those nagging voices, I'm like, I got to get back to Angela. I got to get back to Angela. And literally the day I thought I'm going to get back to you, you reached out to me again. I'm like, here we go. So I believe in the power, call it kismet, call it prayer, call it divine intervention. I don't care, but I believe in listening to those voices. So here I am. And I'm really hoping I'm here, not for me, a little bit for you. But when I learned more about your podcast, I thought, no, there's somebody that's going to need to hear this today. And so, get your booty up and make it happen so that somebody can hear what they need to hear.
Oh, that we really, really appreciate that. And I believe in that, obviously, too. And I believe, like the story of the storm, is crazy. So, a lot of people are going through storms in their life, and just being quiet and praying, I know that's my big thing. I pray every night, and that's super powerful for me. So I know that's, that there is a very powerful takeaway if just one person takes that away and starts to step into themselves, whatever that is, that quietness and the universe or God or whatever, a higher power, and reach into that, because that's really where the strength comes from 100% of the time. So where's your vision in the next? I mean, you talked about franchising, kind of a franchise system with your wagons, ho. What's kind of your vision for the next, 5 to 10 years, Sue?
Yeah. So, I will probably get into coaching, because I've enjoyed coaching my team a great deal. So that's probably on the horizon for me somewhere. But, RMD Advertising is the name of our agency. It continues to grow. Super fortunate about that. 30 years later, we're growing faster and harder than we have ever before. And so we'll see where I'm just, somebody asked me a couple of years ago, how long are you going to stay in the business? And I'm like, as long as I'm relevant. And so, because for me, again, everything that I do really has less to do with me and more to do with helping somebody. And I truly believe we get to help somebody every day. Why is the agency business helpful for somebody? For me, it's because in the food business, people don't know this, 90% of the food that we see on our grocery shelves are still owned and operated by families and real people. And so we don't work for the Betty Crockers of the world, not that those are bad brands. But we work for the brands that are still notable, but you would never think they were owned by a family and real people. And I truly believe when you get out of bed in the morning, you know you're going to work for a real person that really needs you, and they're just really great people. Like, even on those days you're like, oh, I don't have anything left in me. You kind of get up because you're like, what's going on today? All right, I'm heading down the road because I know Jim needs me. So here I go. So,
and it gets you out of bed in the morning. And yeah, coaching would be like life coaching or business coaching or.
I think they kind of go hand in hand. It's interesting that you asked that question because I watch a lot of people. I mean, business is life. Life is business. So I think it probably will end up being a little bit of both.
Sounds good. Any grandchildren yet?
Not yet. My first daughter's getting married. So
the first step is happening soon.
yeah,
We'll have more humans in the world.
more good humans to put out into the world.
That's right. Good humans to put out in the world. That's so cool. What were some of your secrets you feel like, I don't know, secrets is the right word, but obviously you've been married for a long time. I would say you're happily married, relatively, whatever that's, you seem pretty happy about that. What are some of the secrets of getting you through that while building a business also with your spouse? Because not only were you building a family, you were also building a business with your spouse, which is a lot, I hear.
And a charity. And we're both very, very different people. He is an extrovert. I'm an introvert. He's very money motivated. I am not money motivated. He's I'm more pragmatic and strategic, and he's more creative. He's very loud. And I used to be loud. I'm more subdued now. I'm a thinker, I would say that. So I think a lot. We've been married 35 years. And when I tell people that, they're like, whoa. And I'm like, right? Nobody stays married for 35 years anymore. And I get asked that a lot. What is the secret for a long marriage? And here's the answer. Before you get married, you make the promise to each other that we're never gonna divorce. It's not an option. And because of so many storms in our lives, we've had some really rough times. Every marriage does. But, when your daughter's going through hurricanes or some of the other very, very tragic things that have happened in our life, one of you falls down, the other one has to be there to pick the other one up. And sometimes that's a long process. And sometimes it's always a hard process when one is down. But you just have to remind each other that you were there for me when I did this, and I'm going to be there for you when you did this, and you're a team. And even on your worst fights, even if your marriage is threatened, if you've made that promise to each other that divorce isn't an option, then there's always that sense of security, and we all need that. We all need one person in this world that we can count on to be there, and we've just always been there for each other.
Simple as making a decision like everything else in life.
Right.
Yes. Everything's about that decision. If you make the decision, everything else kind of falls into place, it seems like. So that's really cool. In wrapping up, I don't want to take too much time, and I just think this story is incredible, and make sure you guys are sharing this with people. I think it's just crazy. So always ask 3 final questions, and then anything that you would like to share that we didn't touch on that you think would be helpful to our listeners. First question is, someone looking for their purpose. What's one sentence or paragraph that you would say to help them find that?
To help somebody find their purpose, I would say be still, be quiet, and ask yourself what's really important to you in life, what matters most. For me, it was always a sense of family. And so my family, the families I serve, really, I would say in a word, through wagons, through our business, in a word, my life has been about helping families become stronger. And so I think you can only get to that when you're quiet, and be patient, because you can't do that in an hour that you've carved out. You just it took me 20 years to really figure that out. So
it's a case to take some time.
Yeah.
Number 2, and I'm sure you have more than one, what's your favorite quote and why?
I don't know if it's my favorite. The first one because I'm a quote freak. So I love me a good quote. I love Margaret Mead's quote about I'm going to paraphrase this, never doubt the impact that a small group of people can make. In fact, it's the only thing that can, and that's so true. That's so true. But the other one that just popped in my head is this too shall pass, which I guess is appropriate for this conversation because all storms pass. We just don't think they're going to. So I try to tell myself that, and I try to tell my team that too. This too shall pass. The scariest of moments, it's like it'll come and it'll go. So just hold on to that.
It's good. I love that. And then final question is, what's one word or sentence you want on your gravestone?
I broke for families. So I always thought I should just break down and get the bumper sticker. But I always thought, everybody has a bumper sticker that says, I break for. And I always wondered, what do I break for? I break for families. So I will stop to help a family. I will halt and cancel meetings if a family needs me. I break for families.
I love that. That's so good. I love it. Awesome. And then anything, if you run into someone in the coffee shop and they're like, Sue, that was incredible. Got a great story. Is there something else that we didn't touch on that you just think would be really impactful that kind of is laying on your heart?
Yeah, I mean, perfectly. It lays on my heart every single day, and I try to tell as many people this as possible. I truly believe we can solve every single problem in the world if we do one thing. And I truly believe this with all of my heart. And that is put down the cell phones, turn off the television, and sit down together as a family every single night. Not most nights, every single night. There's just something so powerful about looking at each other across the table, eating food that's bad for you or good for you, doesn't matter. And just saying, how was your day? And talking about things. So we can solve our nation's problems if we just start eating dinner together.
Super simple. I love it. Thank you so much for being on. As always, make sure to rate, review, subscribe. Make sure to follow Sue. As we said, if we go out there, we change one starfish or one life at a time. Together, we can change the world. And I'm really excited to do that. Thanks so much for being on, Sarah.
Thank you, buddy.